I didn't feel like I was doing work that I had been cultivating for so many years. And I felt really like out of my element in so many ways. But it was hard to articulate that, to friends and to family because you're in LA, you work for Netflix, you're making 200,000 a year, you should be good to go. And I was just like, but I'm home crying every night after work because I'm just not happy.
Today on the Name a Better Duo podcast, we have Nicole Crowder of Nicole Crowder Upholstery. Nicole Crowder Upholstery is a modern furniture and upholstery studio creating innovative, one-of-a-kind modern heirloom furniture and home furnishings. Nicole released her first custom furniture collection with retailer World Market in 2022 that is available in store and online. In 2022, she also launched and hosted her inaugural upholstery workshop retreat, a 3-day immersive experience that serves a small group of individuals in learning upholstery and reconnecting with their creative selves near Lake Superior each year. Nicole's work spans commercial, hospitality, and editorial clients and has been commissioned by leading hotels and restaurants across the country. Her work has been featured in leading design publications including Architectural Digest, Elle Decor, Martha Stewart Magazine, Design Milk, Business of Homes, Domino.com, Better Homes and Gardens, Midwest Living, Covator, The Washington Post, and more. Welcome, Nicole Crowder.
My big dream project happened within 3 years of being in upholstery, and that was getting an offer from a retailer, World Market, to create my own furniture collection. And I just time stopped, when I got that email. So it was just this amazing culmination of a lot of work, but then I also feel like circumstances because this was June of 2020. So it's on the heels of George Floyd's murder, where a lot of businesses, were supporting Black businesses and Black designers. And I feel like that is where my work, it's like a before World Market and an after World Market period, honestly, for me. So,
well, tell us about that, because I know
yes.
that email had to be so exciting, and like you're transitioning from doing the reupholstering into now creating your own collection of furniture. Tell us
Yeah.
about that
Oh
experience.
my goodness. Like I still remember I was in my studio working on a chair and I happened to check my email. And it was funny because at that time I deliberately did not pay for Wi-Fi in my studio just so I didn't have to be checking email and responding to stuff while I was working. But I looked at my phone and I saw a note from a buyer at World Market and it was like, hi, we wanted to see if you'd be interested or ever considered, I think was their message. Have I ever considered making my own furniture collection and own textile collection? And I tell you, I dropped that phone so fast because I was screaming. I was so overwhelmed and excited. And it really just set off this whole trajectory. I wrote back and I was like, absolutely. I had already had sketches of work that I wanted to create because it had just been, this dream of mine for a long time. And initially, because they were very transparent when they first reached out and were saying, we recognize that we have a dearth of, Black designers who we've used in the past. And we're working to really rectify that. So I appreciated even that honesty.
Yeah.
And they were also like, we love the style, the prints and patterns that you use. We don't have any of that in our furniture collection. So we'd love to, work to bring some of that to life. And so initially we were going to do 3 pieces of furniture, but I had presented 6 or 7 sketches. And then they decided, let's do a 6-piece collection of furniture, which was amazing because a lot of times with these partnerships, especially with licensing deals, it helps you as the designer to have more SKU numbers, meaning more products versus just a couple. So if you can get, 10, 1,500, like that's even better. It's more product and you have space too for negotiating your royalties. And this was a first, foray into anything like this for me. So I was like, well, how do I even go about negotiating, what a licensing agreement looks like? What do royalties look like? And I didn't know where to look. So I went to Instagram and I was putting a little feeler out on my stories. If anybody knows of a commercial commercial licensing attorney. And a friend of mine put me in touch with a lawyer, which was amazing. And they negotiated this fantastic contract for me, just with a lot of questions and terms I wouldn't even have thought of myself, but was super crucial to making sure that I wasn't just coming into this with a lot of excitement and energy, but that I was making a long-term business decision that was good for me. But the collection, like it was couple of chairs. It was a chaise lounge, which I've wanted to design a chaise for so long, something that again felt like a modern heirloom. That was something I'd want to have in my home for years, but also that I hoped other people wanted to have. And we did back and forth sketches for so many months, working with a 3D specialist who they had. And then I would be, because we were manufacturing stuff from India. And
Okay.
with time zone change, I'd be up at 11 o'clock, looking at or on Zooms with them as they were walking me through the furniture samples, through the fabrics. And it was just this really great peek inside of that process for product creation. I had, no idea of this kind of work, a little bit, but certainly not as much insight as I was getting. And there's all these decisions that impact the price, from the quality of fabric to the type of wood to the brass detailing to the shipping timeline to the stores that it's going to be in. So that was a really great education for me. But even within this process, there was another component of the education that I was getting, and that was really advocating for myself. Because again, I'm working with a massive retailer. I don't have a manager. I don't have an agent. I'm advocating for myself just in these emails. And at first I was nervous to do it because, this company is paying you all this money, giving you this platform. And we had many bumps, where I really had to step in and say, no, I
Mm.
don't want to do that. We're not doing that. I don't feel that's not my design aesthetic. That's not my style. And being able to activate again my photo editing background to come into these discussions, these negotiations sometime by saying, this is not the visual that I'm trying to create, or, what's happening with the photo shoot over here? How is this being marketed? All of these things were questions I didn't feel that I could ask at first, but you absolutely have permission to ask them because it's your name, it's your product, it's your aesthetic that they are trying to also capitalize on.
Mm.
So you should be in the thick of all those conversations. And I won't say that it was a completely seamless process, but it certainly was one where I'm like, I feel much more aware now for future partnerships of like what to ask up front, making sure the contract includes so many different terms on the back end, just on how is this going to be promoted? How are the photos going to appear? Who is handling press? Who are the outlets that you want to reach out to? What's the lead time for promoting this collection? Down to the percentage of your royalty on wholesale versus retail, because that could be the difference between 100,000 and 500,000, for your payout. So there was just so much information that I was getting, and this was over the course of 2 years. So a lot of back and forth emails.
Mhm.
Um, but then just like the joy of putting out something that you have conceived of, created from sketch to actualization, where it's now in people's homes and folks are, tagging you and you can walk in the store and see your piece. That feeling is unmatched. Like still think about the first time going into World Market and seeing my stuff on the floor
Yeah.
was so exciting. And I have the chaise in my living room right now. That piece will be with me for forever.
Yeah.
But it just it changed everything, honestly, in my life. It gave me so much breathing space as well. Once I got my royalty check, more opportunities came or are coming that allow me to create different products, experiment with my upholstery work in sort of a different way. And I'm like, having that within the first, 5 years of working in my business, I feel really fortunate because I don't expect that. And I also know that it's taken many, many years for Black designers to be seen and to get these opportunities. So it's also really important that I share, all the ins and outs and the details of negotiating with companies, because there's a lot of brands tapping designers, but it sometimes that relationship isn't like mutually beneficial in the sense that you are also being, taken care of as well as you should be in this partnership. And a lot of that I learned was just self advocacy.
Mm.
To make sure if I'm having this experience, it needs to be the best experience for me that I can have and get as many takeaways from it as I can.
Yeah. Man,
Yeah.
there's So many gems. Because like you said, like, first of all, you have to wear so many hats. And
Mhm.
that's what people need to think about before turning something that they love to do into an actual, like,
Ooh,
career.
yes.
Because for you to have to negotiate, for you to have to you needed to hire an attorney and then, like, looking over contracts, determining your royalties, like, that's foreign language to so many people to me.
Girl, 100%.
So
Yes. And I'm really grateful. There's a fantastic designer. Like she really is such an inspiration for me too, because I started reading her blog way before I was even getting in interiors. But Justina Blakeney, who, has a huge collection with Target as part of the Opal House, and she's such a powerhouse. But I reached out to her just on a whim, right after World Market reached out to me to see if she'd be willing to talk about, you know, her own licensing agreements to get some insight. And she jumped right on a call with me, gave me so much insight about, what to ask for, what kind of language to include in the contract. She talked about her past experience with other companies. And like that, handing off of information to me was beautiful and I'm incredibly grateful for. And it's something that I also, just enjoy doing is sharing with people, up and coming designers, folks who maybe want to be in upholstery or just want to be in interiors in general. The sharing of those resources and information, especially to other Black designers, is how we grow, is how we get those opportunities, is how we know to ask the questions or ask for the higher rates, because that information isn't always privy. It's not out here online. Sometimes there's a bit of a territorial kind of aspect to entrepreneurship and sharing resources and stuff. But it's for me, it's never like sharing with someone is taken away from my opportunity or taken away from my plate. If anything, it's expanding the ecosystem, it's expanding another resource that you have and seeing someone else, get to a place in their career they've always wanted to be. So just being able to talk, Justina helped give me some language that I could then, make sure was in my own contracts. And I don't know if I would have had that otherwise. So yeah, it's ask all of the questions. There's no questions too small, too simple. It's your business, it's your life, it's your reputation. So those are those are essential.
that's so amazing. Like you said, paying it forward and
Mhm.
being able to reach out to someone and they give you that type of information is just so like
Yeah.
it's like you said, you're not it doesn't cost you anything but your
Mhm.
time, you know?
Right.
But for
Yeah.
you to
The time is
be able
important. I get.
yeah, but for you to be able to share something that can actually help push the next
Yeah.
person forward is so invaluable, and it's like, man, like, we don't have to hold on to this. We can actually help each other. It's not
Yeah.
hurting you. It's actually helping the next person and making it so that the next generation doesn't have to have it as,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be as challenging for them. So it costs
Yeah.
you nothing but your time just to be able to help someone and answer some questions.
Yeah, and like absolutely, using your discernment too when it comes to like helping and offering
Yes,
assistance.
yes.
There's so many different tiers of that. And if you are in a position where you're being overtaxed or asked for help and, specific information that is proprietary or, has had to come with years of cultivating relationships, certainly, being able to put a number on offering
Yeah.
that expertise.
Mm,
Or if you're like, I don't fully know if this person, is as committed to doing this thing, because you're thinking about your reputation too when you're offering help or recommending people to other folks who you know. I think for me, discernment has also been something I've had to cultivate a lot working for myself and trying to figure out, what relationships are sincere and which ones are mutually beneficial or even just feeling organic, right? Like they don't feel forced. It doesn't feel like I'm um, being asked to do something and overtaxed in a way that is not mutual
yes,
or even fair.
yes.
So yeah, that's been for me with businesses, with relationships, is that discernment.
I love that word. It's
Mhm.
in every area of your life is necessary.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
necessary. You talked about having to bring in other designers and just realizing with the workload and you needing more space. And How has it been learning to collaborate with other people versus you and the furniture by yourself?
Yeah, I really it's been a mixed bag, but overall, like just incredible collaborating with people. I always feel even more energized creatively when I get to work with others. Because again, I love to talk. And so when I get to share ideas with folks and brainstorm, that just really gasses me up.
Yeah.
When it comes to like my early experience with working with other upholsterers, it's tricky because a lot of upholsterers do not list their businesses on any sort of platform. Some people are truly just working from their home, and it's a lot of word of mouth stuff. So it's harder to vet some of them in terms of like their business acumen, professionalism. So I've definitely had experiences where was trying to hire someone to do a job and they kind of just drop the ball on some areas. And that can build up a sense of like, gosh, I got to do everything myself.
Yes.
I can't do anything with anybody else. But I also know that that's not true. And these are like individual cases. So I
Yeah.
try not to like close myself off too much from wanting to collaborate with others and just say, okay, I need to reframe or rework, the boundaries with them or the guidelines for the contract or whatever it is. Because some folks do not expect you to come to them with a contract. It's just kind of like, oh, we've shared this email, we had this text, we talked about it. That is not, a legally binding sort of way to work together. Um, and even because I'm a super friendly, cheerful person, I want to work with everybody, but I also had to realize you can't just be friendly and kind and be in business too. That's wonderful, but you do have to set up structures and guidelines for how you expect folks to work with you. And that's okay. It allows them to see that, oh, you're serious, you're taking this business seriously, and you have a serious expectation of me. And
Mhm.
so I try to do that. I don't work with any upholsterers now, but certainly, in the past and with seamstresses too, um, wanting to let everyone know that this is a welcoming, safe environment. I value the expertise that you're bringing here. I want to compensate you based on how you value, that expertise. There's no hemming and hawing. There's no back and forth like, oh, I can't do that. Could you do a little bit less? If your rate is your rate, then that is the rate that you were being paid for it. Otherwise, I just, decide that I can't afford to work with you. But I really try to meet people with where they are and respect their business. And so I think that's why I have that expectation too as a collaborator. Um, and even if I'm collaborating with someone who is not like a furniture designer or a seamstress, people who are like textile designers, pattern makers, like that is one of my favorite combinations right there because I get to take your textile, that we've designed together or that you've designed based on an idea and put it on this piece of furniture and we bring this unit, this piece to life together through like two different sort of storytellers coming together. That's really exciting for me. And being able to share that story with a business entity, an organization, a client, um, that's the fun part is
Yeah.
when the idea is crystallized, when the collaboration has been fun and seamless. And, we both are like feeding each other's creativity and love for what we're creating. And it's not just based on, making money or trying to like use each other's connections to get ahead. There's a mutual sense of like, we love what we do and we like doing that together with someone else who's equally passionate about what they do. Those are my favorite kind of collaborations. And I try to, again, using that discernment to feel those out, to be like,
Yeah.
does this feel, natural or does it feel forced? Like we're trying to just, play off each other's talents to get ahead. I really love stuff that feels more like a friendship, that this is a relationship we're getting into for whatever period of time. So for it to feel good in my gut is really important. Um, yeah, so even if it's a collaboration I wouldn't think of myself, people have approached me about, a painter wanted to take her paintings and make them into textiles. And I was like, oh, I love that. That's super dope. So I love non-traditional ways of working to make really beautiful um, objects and pieces for the home space. And I'm
Yeah.
always, always down to collaborate.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm sure that's where that discernment comes in again because I would imagine having that chemistry can be hard to find
Yeah,
sometimes. You know,
it
like,
really can.
but being able to discern, okay, this person is on the same wavelength, or maybe they are strong in areas I'm weak, or vice versa. You
Yeah.
yeah, I would imagine that discernment is so, so key
Yeah.
in establishing those relationships. Who are some of your creative influences?
Oh man, I feel like I have a lot. I really, and they're all outside of the work that I do, but like creatively, oh, it's going to be a spectrum. I'm throwing out some names that are coming up are like Solange, Prince, Jason Reynolds, writer, another writer, Kokai. A lot of my friends like Hadia Williams, Andrea Pippins, Gabby Redford, or not Gabby, yes, Gabby Redford. Like these are all, and the link that I'm seeing with these people is I love how they create sort of like on the low. Like their art is so brilliant and so impactful, but they create like on the low and they are not focused on sharing the process as they're going through it for public opinion until that work is like ready, to be released. Like they're very precious about holding their work to themselves and really going deep with that work and then, wanting for everyone to have access to it and to like live in that body of work. And for me, that's really like what inspires me because as it's so much of an approach to my work that I'm thinking about. I like to say I take the work seriously, but not myself.
Mm,
And I love like not feeling I need to show the process to everyone or get a bunch of opinions on that work, but really like what's the story I'm trying to tell? What are the references? Going deep onto the research, getting deep on the details, and really trying to also learn more about myself in that process because that's what's going to be ultimately the stamp on that work is Nicole, is what I'm doing, where I am in my life, what I'm trying to say, and then that I feel resonates with whoever comes into contact with that work. Even if you haven't heard of me before, even if you don't know any of my past work, when you come across the piece that I'm making, it resonates with you because there is a deep intention that was gone into creating that piece. Um, and I really, really love and I'm inspired by, how like the mentality around creating that Prince, that Jason, that Solange, that my personal friends have because they love the art that they created and there's like a bigger idea around the work itself.
mm,
um, and they're very good about being true to themselves and true to how they show up in this world that would have you operate in a certain way or in a certain cadence or producing work on a certain schedule. They're just like, no, I know who I am,
mm,
and I operate in that timeline for myself.
mm. And they all have a certain, like you said, like knowing who you are, confidence, I feel
Mhm.
like, in who they are, and
Yeah,
not trying to fit into a box.
right.
Them being outside of the box is what allowed them to shine, it's
And
allowed.
shining, yes, in so many different arenas, right? Like, Solange, obviously, such a beautiful example of, music, but also like furniture making and object building and building whole spaces. And now she's doing work for, the Whitney and Metropolitan Museum, like everything that you may not have associated with her before or had an expectation of. She has been like, this is who I am. And I know that I can operate in any sphere, on this plane or the next. And similar with, a lot of my friends who are creative directors, who are in event spaces, but who also are illustrators and painters and collage artists. Um, Jason, and Kokai, who are musicians in their own right, who are writers, but writers across genres, not just children's books, but also like, fiction, nonfiction, short stories, comic books, screenplays, just the ways that they've allowed their gift to permeate so many different sectors really inspires me because it gives me that permission and that affirmation that like I also, possess that gift and that I also have that ability. And it's not there's no limit with it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you ever experience creative block, like similar to
Mhm.
writer's block? Do you experience?
Oh, child.
Mhm.
I was in the thick of it actually earlier this year or later this year. Yeah, creative block is a very real thing. And I was even trying to identify like how does it kind of creep up slowly? Is
Yeah.
it trying to do too many things? Is it trying to produce too many ideas, at one time, putting too much on my plate, and then it becomes jumbled? And I haven't quite figured out the answer, but it's really one of those I'm such a, like, visual person, I have to write it down, all the ideas, all the feelings, and I
Mhm.
have to try and, parse out, "Okay, what am I feeling?"
Yeah.
Even down to, like, what are the colors, that I'm seeing pop up routinely? I really have to get through, um get down to the minutia of where I am mentally and physically. I have to step back from the work for sure. I feel like I can't create because then I'll just end up redoing a chair 10 times. I'm like, I don't really like that fabric. So now I've wasted fabric because I'm trying to force it upon a chair versus really allowing myself space to just stop or rest.
Mhm.
And, rest is such a big, big part of the creative process. It feels really counterproductive to feel like, well, I got to stop and just think versus just doing. But I'm like, the way that I have had to lean into just reading, taking naps, doing, coloring books, going for walks, taking baths, so that something can break in my mind. Those have been the things that have really served me. Writing, I use my notes app or my what is that? The voice recorder to
Mhm.
really just process out loud what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. If I'm just like, you know what, my bathroom feels all messy. I need to get that together. I need to buy, this kind of makeup compartment. I need to get, my towels in a basket. Really have to organize my mind mentally to then be able to work in the physical, aspect of my work. And I've learned that about myself for sure. I can't just push through. I really have to stop and do something else that frees up my mind mentally. And
Yeah.
then I can get back into the work. And reading. Like I'm going between three different books now that are three different subjects, but they're all related to like um reworking or not reworking, going into sort of like your into yourself to come out and produce work. So one is Getting Good with Money by Tiffany Aliche,
Oh,
the
yeah.
budget one, who
Mhm.
I love. But I feel like her book is really helping because again, it's that compartmentalizing. It's really, writing down on paper your budgets, your numbers, seeing stuff clearly so that it's not all just jumbled in your mind. And I'm reading Kokai's new book called Yak, You Are Ketchup, which is also this sort of like going into yourself and getting your structure, your framework, knowing who you are creatively so that you can speak to that in every sector of your work, no matter who you're talking to, and kind of, remembering why you created a thing and how you are the essence of creating that work. And then another book, I'm blanking on her name, I believe it's Rebecca, but she wrote a book called Start the Damn Thing. And it's about galvanizing Black women in entrepreneurship to really create, start whatever the thing is that you want.
Mhm.
And usually, like, I don't really read how-to books or self-help books um, a lot, if at all. I'm very big into like nonfiction stuff, like historical text, but those are the kind of books that I definitely gravitate toward when I need a little bit of breathing space and to compartmentalize and to come out of any sort of blocks
Yeah.
because, they're there to service you and other people's knowledge is, I love to take that in and sort of use my discernment to see what I'll keep and what to put to the side.
Yeah, yeah. My therapist has been challenging me to write more. And I love that you mentioned using the voice memo because sometimes it seems like such a chore to have to pull out
Right.
the book and write.
Right.
But just to be able to say something real quick and get it out your mind because we have
That
so
part.
many thoughts going on up in here,
Yes.
and to just be able to get it out is
And
so
we
important.
Yeah, some people filter, they process information differently. Some are more, audible. Some
Yeah.
definitely to write things. Some people process with other people. You have to, talk to other folks to really sort through your thoughts.
Mhm.
And that goes back to sort of the knowing yourself. It's like whatever it is you need to do to get this information like processed, do that. I do like to process outwardly with other folks,
Mhm.
but I've noticed I don't really go to other people for opinion on what I want to do. In a sense, like if I want to start a new business, a new venture, I'm just going to create that thing and be like, all right, so this is what I'm opening this thing. It's already launching. I'm very good about being decisive in that way. But if I am unsure about, internal turmoil that I'm kind of processing or struggle, therapy has been I just started therapy this year and it's been incredible and life-changing, but also going back to that, sort of perfect day, sitting with friends, with family, with my partner and being able to share what's on my heart because I think it's also an exercise for me in like asking for help and
Mm.
knowing that my feelings, for better or for worse, are valid, and that I can share these feelings with my loved ones without feeling like, well, they know me as the strong, decisive person, or they know me as like the business person who is helping other people, or advising them on their business. This is me showing you that I do not know all the answers, and there are times when I am uncertain about my own moves, and I just want to share that with you because I trust you and I trust you holding some space for me. And I love you in that sense. And I also just want to affirm for myself my own vulnerability. So,
Mm.
yeah.
That's good. I started therapy because I struggle with that. Like, I
Mhm.
don't talk to people about what I'm
Mhm.
going through. Same, similar to when I'm working on a project, I'd rather just show you when I'm done, you know?
Right. Yes.
And so with therapy, I was like, okay, maybe this can be an outlet, an unbiased person
Hmm.
I can speak to where I can just, kind of get that out. And it's teaching me to be more vulnerable and learning to communicate because I think that was a major
Yeah.
issue as well, is learning how to communicate and learning how to articulate what I'm experiencing,
Yeah.
and being the fear of it being perceived wrong because I'm not communicating it well, you know?
Whew.
And so
That,
that's
yes.
one of the things or one of the lessons that I've learned from therapy is like writing it out helps
Mhm.
me, first of all, sort out those thoughts so that I
Yeah.
can be more vulnerable and I can be a little more transparent and not have that fear of judgment.
Yes. Oh my gosh. There's such a, the judgment or the how you're being perceived, a huge trigger for me because I realized I was like, why do I get so defensive about some things? Like, what are the scenarios around that? And it
Mhm.
is this idea of like my character kind of being called into question. And in part, it's because I still have old stories about myself that I have not let go. Or I feel like I want to be perceived a certain way, like knowing things, strong, confident. And there's some areas where I just am not feeling like that all the time. And so I am trying to be better about letting old stories about myself go,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to, having it all together kind of thing. Cause I don't even want people to associate me with like, oh, she's got it all together. And, Nicole is just on it. There's a lot of areas where I have questions, where I need guidance. And I feel like if that is my perception, that's because I have not allowed people to see,
Yeah.
there is another side of me that wants help, that does not, have it all together. And I don't want to give off that perception anymore. I've talked to my partner a lot about this because I think I would get kind of defensive with him because I wanted him to see me as like being strong, not needing the help in some areas. And like, girl, you need the help. you don't have the answers. You don't have it together in this area, and that is okay. You don't have that expectation for anybody else, so why do you have that for yourself?
Hmm.
So, the therapy has been
Mhm.
speaking to me and getting me to tell some truth about myself, that I'm becoming more comfortable with and that are freeing me up, creatively too, to just be free and showing up much more of myself on social media as well, um, and with my family and, in my relationships.
Wow.
How about
Wow.
you?
And learning to receive, because I think that too, when you have this personality of being independent and being strong, it's kind of hard to learn to receive from the people who love you and who just care about you and want the best for you.
Yeah.
Um, you want to put on that perception or that mask of I have it all together, and nobody has it all together. No one expects you to.
Right,
um,
exactly. The expectation isn't even there, and I feel like, eh, there's this thing too, and I think about this with social media, because sometimes people want you to see, like the hard parts of business or the frustrating and challenging parts so that they can kind of, relate or feel like, oh, okay, this person struggles too. And on the other end, I don't feel like you have to show up in that way online for people to relate to you. I don't feel people need to just relate through struggle.
yeah.
There is this balance of like transparency and sharing, and social media to an extent is real. You are showing up, you went to this event, you produced this thing, you had this, experience, um, or you're sharing this vulnerability online. And I feel like in business, specifically with Black women in business, there is this idea that we have to show up like our whole selves online in order to be approachable or likable. And I just don't think that is the case. There's a lot of work that people are doing internally, to become more of who they want to be, become more of their higher selves, as we say. And I feel like, uh, what's needed is the grace to be like, oh, I love how this person shows up. I don't know if that's fully themselves, but I love what they're sharing with us. And on the other end too, I appreciate when this person also says, "Hey, I'm struggling with this thing. I don't have the answers over here. This project was delayed. Whatever the hiccup that I had over there," and not seeing it as like, "Oh, I knew it wasn't all roses over here. I knew things weren't great." It's just like, this is another side of the coin of working in business, of being a person who is online, existing, is you're trying to share who you are without a sense of like, you know, being judged, or that you have to show up in a certain way to be liked or cared for. I don't if that's making sense. It's just being given grace to show up as you are.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I'm sure just with you've expressed how being more vulnerable and being more open in the relationships that you know you can trust um,
Yeah.
has helped you creatively. What would you say is your creative process?
Ooh, my creative process is a lot of writing.
Mm,
There's so much to creating this tactile object that starts with so many notes, that starts with sketches. I compartmentalize. I use Pinterest a lot to just gather research.
mhm,
And that's how I help, you know, process what it is that I'm trying to say.
mm,
Um, I rarely kind of just start in on a project and then, build as I'm going. I really take a long time to say, okay, what's the collection I want to create? What's the story that I want to tell? What are the colorways? Who am I talking to? What are the words and the buzzwords around this that I'm feeling? Um, how am I, want to stretch myself in this project? And then I write a lot of like kind of mini stories, if you will, because I do like to see furniture as kind of living objects. They're objects you live with that take up your space, that can make you, feel a kind of way just upon interaction with them. And so I really take time with uh, like sort of patterning colors together, figuring like, okay, does this shade of pink work with this shade of blue, or does this black go with this cream? Before I even go and, buy furniture or buy fabric, because once the idea has crystallized, I just take off and I can finish a piece of furniture, within a day because I've done weeks worth of that research leading up to it to make sure this is the vision. And if I'm tweaking as I go along, that's fine. But I still have a sense of like, this is the direction I'm taking this chair in. This is the story that I'm telling with it or with the space versus like, I just kind of do a little bit of this here, a little bit of that there. I find if I work in that way, I'm wasting so much money buying new materials or wasting materials. So it's the research, it's the writing, it's the getting clear about what it is that I'm trying to say with this object or with this space or with these, multiple pieces before I can even go out and gather the materials for them. And
Yeah.
the process too is sometimes it'll take, it'll be months between doing any particular work. Like my last chair project, the 8x8, I conceived of that in May, I would say, of this year. And I started working on everything in June. I didn't finish it until October, I want to say, because so much of that was thinking about what are the colorways for these projects? What are the fabrics? What do they look like? What's the story? Who am I talking to? What am I sharing? And once I got those fabrics, at least 4 of those chairs I was able to do in a day because it just crystallized that much, even with all the details and all the little, jewels and studs that are on them. I see the idea clearly because I've given myself time to work through it on paper.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's
Mhm.
vital in any creative process. When you think of like even screenwriters will do
Yeah.
storyboarding before they actually start writing, or they'll
Hmm.
outline and flesh out the characters before they actually put pen to paper, put keys to
Yeah.
the computer. I think that a lot of people on the outside looking in, they just see the finished product and don't think
Hmm.
about that creative process, like you said, taking months
Yeah.
to actually come to see it come to fruition. So I
Mm.
think the ones that are or the creative projects that are like that speak to people the most are the ones that are fleshed out in that way and
Yeah.
that preparation, and that's with anything.
Anything
And
like
preparation is so important. You think back to like grade school and how we had to write outlines before we could write a paper, right?
exactly. Exactly. It's so much of like the energy of how you created this thing, even if people don't see, how you were creating that stuff. And I admire folks who, set up their cameras to record the process. I used to do that. And it really prolonged the process for creating because I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to turn here. Then I got to redo this stitch so you can get this angle. And I just decided that I didn't want to work that way anymore unless I get someone in the room with me who will,
Yeah.
do all that. But otherwise, it takes me out of my creative process to try and document it at the same time. And so I notice how it resonates differently with people when I do have, an extended process around creating something and folks are like, man, I don't know how you did that. They're just really observing all the different details. It feels really validating, to have people respond to your work because even if they don't know the timeline, like they know there was a timeline here. There was a whole process that went into making it look flawless or clean. And you're like, you want to know what that process is, but just the understanding that it didn't happen overnight is me really, validating.
Yeah, yeah. What projects would you say you were most excited about? What have been some of the most exciting projects you worked on?
Oh, definitely the 8x8 chair project because I had started something similar to that in 2020, where I got these beautiful chairs, these Hans Wegner replica chairs, replicas of his shell chair. And being able to do a theme around chairs gets me super excited. I like rolling them out kind of like a fashion show or fashion collection. So that was fun because I got to do one chair a day and it built up this excitement for people to keep coming back and seeing something new and, using feathers and gold and studs. just materials folks wouldn't associate with furniture was really exciting for me. And I got to just have fun with it. I didn't know if they would sell, if there'd be any interest, beyond me just having fun. And so to see them getting so much response from people was awesome. But then also, my retreat. There's an upholstery workshop retreat that I hosted for the first time this fall in November, and I've had this idea for, oh my gosh, maybe 5 years, 4 or 5 years, where I just wanted to get a bunch of folks together in a beautiful setting, surrounded by great food, a beautiful view, reupholster chairs, be in conversation, talking about life, creativity, what's on your heart. And I was able to finally launch that retreat in the best iteration beyond my imagination possible this year. And getting to interact with folks who just interact with me online, but doing so in a physical space for 3 days was kind of surreal. Just them seeing me, seeing me show up in person the same way I do online, seeing them reupholster these chairs in a dynamic way, and also how emotional they felt, leaving that retreat. I was crying myself because I was overwhelmed with this seed that I had inside of me finally being out and producing a kind of fruit. So I'm looking forward to doing that again next year in the summer. So it's like those long-term projects and long-term ideas that feel big when they finally come to fruition. I'm just like, you did that, you're so capable of this and much more. And it's just beautiful and surreal seeing your ideas take physical form. Um, and then my napkin rings, I actually have a couple here with me.
Yes.
I had designed 3 different types of napkin rings for table settings, and that's been, going from a sketch almost 2 years ago to products now that are on people's tables. I just am grateful, and it feels weird kind of tooting your own horn, but like, your ideas coming to fruition in the world. I'm like, yes, girl, you made that. You made that.
Yeah, you should. It's so rewarding. And that's why I often say everyone is a creative. I think we like to say that
Yes.
certain people who are doing certain types of work are creatives, but I feel like everyone was born to create in whatever shape or form that looks like.
Yes.
But whenever you see something, it could be fixing dinner, but once you see that meal complete on the table and your family enjoying it, it's just such a rewarding feeling. And I think that
Yes.
that's why, like we are all born to create in some shape or form. So it's just
Yes.
experience. Yeah.
The the it goes back to that feeling of, the hobbies and the crafts.
Yeah.
They're for everybody, and anyone can do those things. And if it's baking, if it's, collecting buttons and stuff, that is all creation right there. That is all your imagination being activated. And it doesn't have to be for money. It doesn't have to be for public consumption. It doesn't have to be on display. It is still creation. And I have some friends who are like, "Oh, I'm creative adjacent," or I'm like, you're still in that field. Creatives were just branded multiple things. Content creators, designers, artists. But it's all under the umbrella, of creation. Now, would I say I'm also like an athlete? No, I wouldn't say that by any means. But like, everybody has that capacity to make something.
I
And
wouldn't say you weren't though, because what you
really,
do, you have to be athletic in a way.
that's
Getting
true.
furniture and
Oh
like that's
my gosh.
like, like upholstering, like that's
You know,
athletic in a way.
I think I agree with you because I have to get routine massages. I've counted them as part of my healthcare plan, honestly, with all the heavy lifting. I was like, no, I got to get some body work here for all this physical activity. So I received that. Yes.
You're an athlete. You brought up in your favorite shows, House Hunters, and we talked about
Yeah.
how there's differing styles and taking in that style. A lot of people struggle, I feel like, especially with people purchasing a first home or even, designing their apartments with determining their style. How would you recommend someone figuring out what their unique style is?
Their unique style for their home space, like how to decorate their home
Yeah.
space?
Mhm.
Oh, that's a good question. I think, maybe, like, start with the room, and say, "How do I wanna feel in this room?
Yeah.
And how do I even, like, dress?" When I was, working for apartment therapy and trying to identify people who may have a really cool home to photograph, I would look at their personal style and say, "Oh, they seem like they got cool personal style. Maybe that extends to their home." And I
Mhm.
would say the same thing for identifying just even how you like to dress. Do you like cool colors? Do you like neutral tones? Are you more into minimal style? Do you like a little accent here and there? Maybe you like white t-shirt, blue jeans, but your shoes are really vibrant or your bag is really vibrant. Use that to translate into like an accent wall. Or if you like a lot of jewelry, maybe make a huge galley wall with a lot of really ornate frames, that are brass or that have different materials.
Mhm.
Um, I would experiment with different tapestries and rugs because that's forming the sort of foundation for your room that kind of lifts everything else. Even if you're like, I want to keep the walls white, I want to keep the bedding, neutral, those pops of color can come in the form of a vase that's really vibrant. They can be a curtain that just pops. Um, Whatever you like to look at, use that and impart that on the room space itself.
Mhm.
My bathroom, I'll give you an example. I call it the chamber room. It's just this, it's like a half bath
Mhm.
and just a toilet and a small shower is in there. But I hate going in that room because it's so cold and like, the vent is loud. Well, it's not really loud, but it's just always on. And I'm like, I need to make the space feel warm and inviting and cozy, and like I wanna spend a few minutes up in here. And I had painted it pink initially, but it felt too loud in there. Like, the pink was really distracting. I didn't feel calm. And so I said, "Okay, Nicole, what do you like to do? What do you want to feel like in this room?" And I said, I really want to feel rested, calm, but also warm. Like, I want to come in this room and it feels, even though it's small, I want it to feel kind of warm. So I had an idea that I'm going to transform it into like a sauna almost. I live in Minnesota. I do not have a sauna, but I can make it mimic a sauna. And so I'm going to get wallpaper, peel and stick wallpaper that looks like those wooden slats that you would see in a sauna. Put those all over the wall. And then my brother, who does a lot of woodwork, have him put like, a slat around the wall to look like, again, a sauna with a towel, have some baskets in there. I'm going to have my diffusers. It's going to have a minimal style, but it still reflects like a sense of place. Putting a heater in that room, getting a carpet on the floor, hanging a little knob for my bathrobe so that it's functional and practical, but also just like small tweaks to make it feel prettier in there to me, because I don't have a sauna but I would like a sauna, so I'm going to make this place look and feel like a sauna, and hopefully I can manifest that one day.
Oh,
But I always start with identifying how you want to feel in a room,
mhm.
because that determines everything else, the colorways that you use. If you want a calm space, maybe you don't go with the highlighter yellow, on the walls or whatever. If you want it to be like warm and inviting for your guest, um, layer it with textiles, with pillows, with different coffee table books, with experiment with height by using, tall floor lamps that maybe lean over, or really tall plants that envelop you into a space and feel a bit like you're cocooned. Add mirrors if you want to open up a space to add more light in there. If you're a little more whimsical or kind of kitschy, put some accents that are a little, a bit of a wink. Maybe it's like an old school pink telephone, or it's a big rug that looks like lips.
Mm.
Or there's a really cool designer, Sean Brown, I believe is his name. He has a company called Curved at Home, and they design these super dope. I need to buy one actually. It's a rug that looks like a CD. So you'll have like Jay-Z CD or Mary J. Blige, like the actual CD, but it's made into a rug, and
Okay.
that just adds a little more flair, a little more pop. Great if you're a music lover. So I would say, like, make it an extension of your personality, but also an extension of how you want to feel overall into a space. And do not be afraid. Nothing is permanent in there except Nothing really. You can change unless you're putting up, you're taking down a whole wall. But if it's paint, wallpaper, textiles, all of that is cosmetic and completely able to be swapped out at any point.
Uh, I'm so inspired.
Yes.
Just for you to just like create that idea of, okay, this is how I want to feel. A
Hmm.
sauna. Like, and it doesn't have to be a sauna, but I'm giving you the vibe of a sauna through a
Exactly.
bathroom. Like, that is genius.
Yes.
That's genius. I love
Even like,
that.
if you can put music in there, a little, speaker you can attach on the wall, have some soothing music playing throughout, changing the color of the curtain so that it's, a neutral tone, just anything that is close to the spaces, the environments you like to be in. If you love something that's tropical, maybe putting like, a big print of some island that you really love, or like a detailed close up of the water or the sand. Maybe doing the wallpaper all in this sort of like sunset, whatever it is, to make you feel like you're in that space. A big sort of design trend called Japandi, which sort of mixes Japanese style and minimalism with Scandinavian minimalism, is a huge trend. And some of those colors are like, things are really low to the ground, like platform, but then you also have, red and black and white, neutral tones, maybe a small plant, like a bonsai plant or a succulent versus a tall, more tropical kind of plant taking up a space. And then instead of shelving, a lot of it is modular boxes that you can move around so you can change the height whenever you want to. There's so many styles to play with, and I feel like going on Pinterest and just saving boards is good for getting those ideas, because that's what I'm doing with my sauna bathroom. I'm like gathering a bunch of photos of what a sauna looks like and just incorporating some of those elements through found objects. Facebook Marketplace, very good resource.
Listen, folks, you just got some genius expert advice here, okay? I hope it inspires you as it inspired me. No, I'm so in awe of, I think a lot of people are right now, but I've just always just loved just aesthetics. And I've always been, just like admire people who are so good at putting it together. And so like, I'm inspired, like I said.
Oh, Renee, thank you. I'm so inspired by you. Like, you build, production companies, and the fact that you're doing these fantastic interviews with people who clearly like they already see, all that light, all that energy in you. You're so wonderful with connecting with people and really um, getting into that heart space of what's at the crux of whatever the industry is. If it's writers, if it's people in finance, if it's in design, you have such a gift for making people feel seen and received. And so I'm super grateful to you, and I just wanted to say thank you. I wish I could do it in person, but this has been such a treat, because there's a lot of things I haven't even had a chance to, sort of process out loud that I was able to do here in this space, and it's given me a nice moment of recollection and recentering. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I received that. And this has been so amazing. It's been just so good to catch up with you and to see your face.
Yes,
And
you
to be
too.
able to share this information with our listeners and our viewers. It's just, I appreciate you so much for taking the time out of
Thank
your day to do
thank
this.
you.
Let the people know where they can find your work, how they can follow you.
Absolutely. I am on Instagram. You can reach me at or find me at Nicole M as in Marie and then Crowder. That's my handle. You can email me. I'm at crowder.nicole@gmail. I don't think I'm on any other platforms besides Instagram, but my website is NicoleCrowderUpholstery.com. And you can still find some of my pieces in World Market as well, in stores and online.
Yes, I love it. I love it. You definitely need to follow Nicole just for inspiration, if nothing else, but just to follow all the amazing things she's doing. Like, I'm just so excited to see how your career is taking off and what you have in store next. So thank you for sharing and taking this time.
Thank you so much, Renee. This has been a treat. I love to do this. I definitely want to come back. So let me know.
For sure, for sure. Thank you everyone for watching or for listening to the Name a Better Duo podcast. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Renee Nicole. Have a good one.